Now we're ready to move on to the first chord, the 1 chord, E flat major 7. Over this we're going to play E flat Ionian, and this is obviously the first mode of the E flat major scale. Therefore, whenever we play the E flat major scale over an E flat major 7 chord, we hear the mode E flat Ionian. This mode will look like this. In our first position, and the arpeggio that goes with it. 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, now let's check it out in the higher position. There's our chord shape, and here's our scale shape. Okay, and now that we've done that, let's check out the arpeggio. 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, so now that we understand the chord shapes and the modes that work over each of these chords in the 2-5-1, we're going to go a step further and look at some examples of vocabulary which work over this progression. Vocabulary is what happens when we turn scales, modes and arpeggios into music. I guess this could be likened to what happens when we turn the alphabet and words into language. The only way to really learn musical vocabulary is by listening to and transcribing and learning to play appropriate musical examples. So with this in mind, I've prepared a number of examples of vocabulary which work over the 2-5-1 progression in E flat. So what I'm going to do now is demonstrate these lines in both positions on the neck, which we've covered in the comping. And it's worth noting that these vocabulary examples contain notes which aren't necessarily part of the modes that we've looked at in this lesson. These extra notes can be referred to as chromatics. Before using chromatics, it's important to understand that they are employed in a controlled way, and we'll be looking at some techniques to introduce chromatics into your playing in some of the lessons that follow this one. For now though, don't really worry too much about trying to justify them. It's really much more important to hear how they sound first of all, so that whenever we do approach learning them in more detail, you're going to have a context for them. Also in the beginning, it may feel like you're playing these lines as licks over the chords. By practicing them repeatedly every day, however, you're going to be able to get them into your hands and ears so they become second nature. And when this happens, you'll start to be able to recall them at will and use parts of them in improvising quite naturally without even thinking about it. It's this kind of internalization of the material which is really the goal of this exercise, and the only way to achieve it is just by repetition in your practice for maybe a couple of months. And finally, when you start to become familiar with the vocab, a great way to keep your practice interesting is to try and play these lines in different keys. Maybe try moving around the circle of fifths and playing them in each of the keys around the circle of fifths, and also in different areas around the neck. And make sure whenever you're playing them, you pay attention to the way in which I'm playing them, in terms of the positions I'm using, the picking, the dynamics, the articulation. Try and copy not just the notes, but the way the notes are played. Okay, so let's continue now and play through these line examples. So this is line number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 1 in the higher position. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 2. 2, 3, 4, 1. Lick number 2 in the higher position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. One, two, three, four, 1. Lick number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 3 in the higher position. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 4 in the higher position. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, lick number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lick number 5 in the higher position. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those are the 5 2-5-1 licks in the key of E flat major that we're going to be working with. We're going to build some solos out of some of the material they include in later lessons. I think it's important to point out at this stage that I'm playing them all with alternate picking, with the downstroke being on the beat and the upstroke on the off beat. And in jazz, as opposed to creating swing by making the rhythm uneven like this, I'm trying to make it swing by accenting the offbeat or the upstroke and keeping the rhythm fairly consistent. So maybe if you want to try that, it gives you a slightly more controlled and modern sounding form of swing. Okay, so enjoy your practice and I'll see you in the next lesson.